Welcome back, y'all. It's your girl, Queen Renny, and you are tuned in to The Real and the Raw. First off, I hope this week was nothing but success for you. And if it wasn't, I'm sending you all the positive vibes and love. I'm super excited, y'all. This series has been like so dope so far. I've had some amazing guests. I've been able to kind of tell y'all where I'm at in my journey and my walk to surrender. For those of you who might be tuning in for the very first time, this series is focused on our walk to surrender, giving it to God. And so we've just been touching on different situations with people and their journeys to surrender, sharing some little gems and some hopeful tips for those that may be in their current walk, and things like that. So yeah, I have another special guest today. So can you guess who's coming to the couch today? Can you guess who's coming to the couch today? Okay, please help me welcome.
My name is Tia, well Tiari, but I go by Tia for those that know me. Nickname Tia Marie by your one and only.
Woo, woo.
I am a woman of God. I am a sister. I'm a daughter. I am, of course, a mother of all.
To my godchildren.
And I'm happy to be here. Hello, hello, hello.
Period. Thank you for coming. So, okay, like I said, very special guest. This is my best friend. Most of y'all who know me know her, and most of people who know her know me because it's a package deal. A lot of people think that I'm the mother to her children, and I am not. This is their mother. We just happen to have melanin. It's an inside joke between me and her kids, even the baby. But anyways, as y'all can tell, this is going to be a very fun, dope episode. But I'm excited to just tell people about her journey, but also like our journey in friendship and how it's like blossomed into what it is today and centered around like God and growth and all those things. And so yeah, I want to start by kind of like going into how we met. I think it's interesting because we probably have two different perspectives on how we met, because I don't know if you
I hated her.
Yeah. But the thing is, I remember, well, okay, I'll let you tell it. How did we meet? And when, like, how old, situation?
I just remember taking basketball a little more serious through AAU. For those of shout out to the AAU players. If you know, you know.
Gang.
My dad wanted me to see a specific player, and he was just harped on, somebody that had perseverance, determination. He says, when I see her, I see you. You guys both have grit and grind, and not a lot of female players possess that at the time.
Yeah.
He took me to the Manteca High game, and I forgot what game that we were playing. Honestly, I didn't care. I was jealous. I was like, I'm not trying to be like nobody else, Dad, at this point. But I seen what he expected of me watching her play. It was like standards. Every parent has goals. Every parent has this aspiration of what they picture their child to be like. And when you looked around at the time, it was easy to fall into the parties, the clubs, the drinking at a young age, the drugs at a young age. Yeah. And when you see certain kids, you see that determination of a better life, and you just see God just flourishing through families of these kids as well. So I went to the game and I was just like, she all right. She cool.
It's the hater. There's always one in the crowd.
She cool. And then my dad, I guess he introduced himself. Did he introduce himself?
Yeah. So okay, just so y'all know, we're 4 years apart. So when she's like, he brought me to a game,
8th grade.
Let's talk about, she's in 8th grade and I'm in my junior year of high school. And so like this was like the setting. And so after the game, yeah, he did come up to me and he said, well, the thing is though, I had watched her play way before he brought her to the game. My high school used to host a tournament for the junior high teams, and her team played in the tournament, and I remember watching, and she was killing. I remember watching, like, who is this Indian girl out here?
I can't stand her. I can't stand her.
Who is this Indian girl out here killing? Because at the time I thought she was Indian. Yo, she is not. She's Hawaiian Samoan. But I'm like, oh, she's killing. Like, I hope she comes here, you know? I don't even know. That wasn't in her 8th grade year. This had to be like, I don't know, 6th grade, 7th grade year, maybe, because a couple years later is when he brought her to the game. And I recognized them because when they walked in, I had seen her before. And I'm like, I'm not thinking of it. But basically, after the game, he came up and he introduced himself. And I don't know if he brought you up with him or not, but he introduced himself and was like, good game.
That man was doing his own thing.
We're going to be, you know, following you, watching you play. I want my daughter to come here and play with you. And I'm like, okay, like, cool. Like, I'm not thinking much of it, but I'm like, thank you. And then
I was thinking I didn't need no new friends. I didn't need no new friends. I don't know why this man trying to play, you know, matchmaker with the friendships world. And I was just like, it's not really my style, Dad. But
I think, yeah, I guess my senior year, the next year, she came to Manteca High as a freshman and was on the basketball team.
So just getting to Manteca High, and, you know, I didn't like her from first practice. I was so nervous. I usually block out a lot of things and just try to focus. It happened. There was a scrimmage, or we were just getting in line. They said baseline. All right, we're on the baseline. I did not hear specifics and the details of what we were supposed to be lining up as. And I just went by my last name. My first name starts with a T. My last name starts with a T. So I already know I'm in the back. We were going by middle names. I didn't hear that part. And everybody's going down the line. I don't know these people like that. I don't know their first name from their last name. So I don't know what name they're calling from. Apparently they were going by middle names. I didn't catch that yet.
Bro.
I just get called out in the most disrespectful way. And I get called slow. In every which corner you can bring it from. And I instantly hated her because it came from her. She was the first one that called it out. She was the only one that called it out, and the whole team laughed at me. And at that point, I'm just like, this is the kind of year we're gonna have. All right.
No, so first of all, she makes me seem like I was a terrible person.
Horrible.
That is not exactly how it was. Basically, she got in the wrong spot. Yes. And so when we're going down the line, like in alphabetical order, we get to her and we're supposed to be on M. And she says her first name, I think she says Tiare. And I'm like, do you not know your ABCs? Because what's going on here? I'm like, are you, mind you, people who know me today would know that I would never say this to anyone anymore. But I was like, are you slow? Like, what's
wrong? She sat there with real concern.
No, like real concern. So what's wrong with you? Like, you don't know your ABCs? And that, for most of y'all know that most of y'all think her middle name is Marie because of this reason, because so many people call her this. And then it ended up, I think, being your Instagram name for like hella years. But basically, that's where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just give you a middle name as Marie. And so we started calling her Tia Marie.
That's her thought process of what a Hawaiian name would be like. Marie was the best that she came up with.
Tia Marie. And like you said it like that every time. It was not just Tia, it was Tia Marie. Like, that's her name. I gave you a black name, essentially. Tia Marie. Like, what? And it rhymed. It just went. Tia Marie. It flowed. So that became her name. And yeah, no, we were not friends right away. We didn't like hate each other the way she makes it seem. But we didn't have a friendship. We were just teammates. But what was interesting is that even without us having a friendship, we were great teammates. Like, we played,
the chemistry on the court,
yeah,
was, I guess, a different tier of playing.
It was like we had played together before. She knew how to read my passes. She knew how to pop out of and be where the ball was going before people would be like, who is the ball? Oh, she's there. And she was a freshman, but she was basically a big because she was so tall. And so she knew how to run the floor. Like, I could trust her to get the ball at half court and make a move. Like, those things just came natural. But it was like off the court, okay, see you later, bye. and even though the team was very close, we did a lot of bonding together. We would go to the movies, have sleepovers together. She would be there, but she was usually like kind of coupled up with like the younger girls.
Yeah.
Or she couldn't spend the night because that wasn't a part of her culture. So she would come to things and not be able to do the sleepover or whatever. But I remember, I think the turning point where it was like, oh, we're actually friends, was actually like close. It was like the last couple games of the season. And mind you, this is my senior year, this is her freshman year. So I'm about to go off to college. So I'm thinking like, I'm probably never gonna talk to this girl again. But our basketball team would do this like every home game. The family of each team would host the team dinner before the game. So it was finally her turn, last couple games of the season, and her family went to her family's house. And her dad, her mom, and her grandpa were there. And we all sat at this long table that they had put out. And her grandpa was basically like, he knew me. He was talking to me. He knew my name. And he was like, "You're a Buffalo Soldier." So he put on this Hawaiian song that talked about
it's
it.
a reggae song.
And it was from there that I was like, her family is what made me want to be friends with her, essentially. Not in a mean way, but in the best way. And then her dad literally was like, no, this was the whole point of why I brought her to this school. So from there, it was like, we were, that was it. I think for me, I don't know.
Don't skip up all the parts. don't skip over all the parts. There was a part in that middle that I really disliked her. First of all,
what did I
do? My dad is off limits.
Oh,
but every case scenario, this is a married man at his best. I had no clue what she was talking about. She was talking about this handsome man with a haircut. And next thing you know, it's my dad walking through the door. And I'm like, did I miss him?
I didn't. Bruh, this was the first time I think I had saw her dad since he cut his hair or something. And he had a nice haircut. And he walked in and I was just like, I don't think I even recognized that it was her dad at first. It was just some handsome, he's tall.
He looked young.
Dark, like, young. Nice brown skin, like, fine. He is a beautiful man. Like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, oh, yo, daddy. Like, mind you, I did not know her mother at this time. So I go up to her and I was like, I'm going to be your stepmother.
And now you can see why I did not like her. She just skipped that whole part. I'm like, okay, so before we get emotional there, before it became the turning point of a forever friendship, that was like, she was my first bully. She had the biggest crush on my dad, and it just made me like, and essentially, after some time,
it went away. Like, it went away. I
would hope so.
He's just a beautiful man, and I don't mean that in like I like him, like, but he ended up being like a what do you call it, a godfather to me, like a dad. No, like he really made me like feel like I was one of his kids. Her mom too, like, and so he made clear though that he put her at this school so that we could be friends. And it was just like, now in hindsight, it's like, oh, you were doing both of us a favor.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, like we ended up staying friends through the rest of my senior year. I left for college. I was at Chico State for 2 years. We stayed like in contact, but we never been to talk every day.
It was just always love. I wished her the best. She wished me the best of the rest of my journey through high school. Didn't think I was going to see her again, but I was still going to follow up and everything. Because obviously,
that's
when you click with somebody like that on the court, there's another mental capacity where it's just like you never have that bond with people again. And some real hoopers actually know that,
Yeah,
I can only play with this person because I don't have to do too much. They can read me from afar.
All of my friends to this day that are like best friends, these are my sisters, I all met them through basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where like all my friendships lie, because that game, it's special. When you're traveling with each other, all those things. But so I was at Chico State for 2 years. I ended up leaving Chico and I needed to have knee surgery. So I took a semester off of school. This was like 2013. Yeah. And so I'm home this fall semester, rehabbing and things like that. And that's when we're like hanging out all the time. I'm at her house, she's at my house. She had a car at the time, so we're driving around.
I have no business having that car either.
No, we didn't have no money, so like we're going to Taco Bell, putting our $2 together,
Jack in the
Box, Jack in the Box, not Taco Bell. Going to Jack in the Box, putting our money together, getting curly fries and tacos because that's all we could afford. Type, you know. But and then there was her youngest sister's 5th birthday party. We're all at her house celebrating. I'm getting ready the next day to go to my visit at William Jessup. And so she's about to take me back home. They were living in Stockton. I was living in Manteca at my grandparents' house at the time. And we never really took pictures together like that. But her dad was like, let's take a picture. It's a big moment. The youngest child turning 5. And so we took a group photo and we walked off. And me and him walked off.
Mind you, it's a blurry photo.
Yeah, it's a terrible photo. I don't think I've ever even seen the photo.
I haven't seen it either.
I don't, because he took it on like a camera or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a GoPro.
Yeah. GoPro. So he pulled me aside and he said, when you go to this visit, I want you to remember something. Be patient. Make sure you love it. But don't like rush. Just don't rush. Take your time. And I'm like, okay. She took me home and
Don was there too. Don was there because
was he there?
Yeah, because they talked.
No, that was the barbecue before.
That was the first time he met Don too.
Yeah, the barbecue before he met my husband, and he said, "These are my girls. You take care of every single one of them." That was the first time they met. But so I get home, I fall asleep, and so do you want to talk about, I guess, that phone call that you made to me that night, and kind of the impact of what happened after?
Woo! Okay, let's do this without tears, guys, because we've never talked about this ever.
No, since I just know what happened years ago. We've never had a conversation.
It's like a surreal feeling, especially in that moment when you typically watch a loved one die. You're holding their hand until their hand goes cold.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really click until you feel the coldness kind of fill their body. I went numb. I went in the most typical way because my mom is breaking down crying. But everybody needs to know my mom's not going to be able to make that phone call.
Right.
My sisters are asleep at this time because it was like 2:00 in the morning when this happened. The first phone call I made was to my uncle, and then I made it to Sharon. And it's just, it doesn't get old when you are making this phone call. You are relaying a sad message. This is not a message that you text. This is not a message that you even say on a voicemail. You have to get somebody live. And when they get on the phone and you tell them what happened, it's a pause in the air. It's you don't really fully understand the words until it resonates in you. Mm-hmm. So when I made that call, just kind of like, dad's gone. And it's like, what do you mean dad's gone?
No, literally.
Like, he died. And I just remember the dramatic effect behind it is he's gone. He's dead. It clicks. Like, just give it 2 seconds for it to marinate. Then it clicks. And every person that I've spoke to on the phone, I needed them to have that moment for it to marinate for them. And when I heard Sharon break down too, it kind of sat with me differently. It sat with me in the same way it did the rest of my family members. Because what friend breaks down with you when you lose somebody that close?
Yeah.
It's more like oh no, do you need me to come over? Oh no, I'm so sorry for this. No, it was a breakdown. Like, she lost somebody as close as I did. And it was hard to let it sink in. I think I even heard mom in the background too. And it's phone calls you will never forget.
Yeah. Because my phone was vibrating under me at first, because I think like she texted me first and I didn't respond, and then she called and she's like, "Dad died don't tell anyone yet. And I said, what? Like, I'm out of the fog. I'm like, what? It's not. I'm like, I was just there. Like, no. Like, I got home at like 11 or 12 o'clock. She's calling me at like 2:30. And I'm like, what? In the morning. I'm like, what? So I'm like, what? She's like, he died. Come here. Like, come to the house. And I like she said, I just started crying. I hopped up. I'm screaming to my mom. And my mom's like, what? And I'm like, Palma died. And my grandma's like, what? I just fall into my grandma's arms. We pray. And me and my mom hop in the car at 2:30 at night, go into their house. And I just remember walking in being like, I didn't know what to expect. And then when me and my mom realized that basically the coroner's office hadn't even arrived yet. And so he was still there. And so I'm thinking like, this is a private, family moment. So I'm just kind of standing there not wanting to be, intrusive. And they're like, no, come in the room. And I walk in the room and they're saying goodbyes and saying prayer, because also too, my mom and her dad were very close. And so my mom was crying. Like, she got down, she kissed him. Like, it was, yeah, if y'all just, for those of you who watch this and know him, then you're going to understand like why everyone who met him was just so impacted by it. And so we prayed and all, we're there through the funeral and the repast and, just all of these things. Me and my mom and my grandmother were there, and at the burial and things like that. And I just remember not really knowing what to say, but what I because like I said, we never talked about it, but I've never asked is like, what did that do for your relationship with God? Like, was that a surrender moment? Because I don't know if you want to go into, what you had to do that night, but what did that, knowing what you had to do and the final outcome, what did that do for your relationship with God?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So at that moment, I didn't go to God first. At that moment, I don't know where I was finding the strength from, but I knew my mom needed me. Yeah. I knew my sisters needed me. And for myself, I needed God.
Yeah.
But at that moment, God was not the first thing that clicked into my head. Honestly, it was just like a dark shadow. It's like a whole passing of a cloud that you're just walking through in those brief moments of, actually, the beginning stages of grief. You're numb.
Yeah.
It's like sitting in a dark room with all the lights off. You see absolutely nothing. Your eyes are awake, but things don't make sense, or sometimes things just kind of cloud your judgment to a point where you are here, but you're mentally not processing anything. So for me, I didn't find God till later. I used him as a parking brake. I used him in moments where I couldn't bear the stress anymore, and I would just go to my room and close the door, go to the bathroom. I used him in those moments that I would call out to him just to please relieve the pain of whatever I'm going through. And the slightest relief that I get is what had me bounce back every single time. And I'd stand up, wipe my face, go back out and smile like nothing was wrong. I felt like it was weak of me. I wouldn't say weak. I felt like I couldn't let my mom see me in pain. Because if, for some that don't know, since we're going to open the book all the way, I feel like that point in time, I lost my mom the same time I lost my dad. And I was 17. My life didn't even start. I'm actually on my way to college. That was the time I actually signed up for Delta. I didn't know what to do. My dad was the provider of the house. So it was a whole bunch of things happening so fast in front of me where I couldn't even grasp the concept to just get on my knees and pray. And when I needed God the most, he just sat there. He just sat there waiting for me. He sat there listening to every cry, every conversation I had to myself. And it didn't become clear till afterwards. So we're talking about where we are now. Aside from then, what I realize now is in those that actually experience grief in the most unexpected ways, you would understand that there is a sense of memory loss.
Yeah.
That you have over those years of time.
Yeah.
It's after years, and you're there. Obviously, you're there because there's stories being told with you in it that you just don't recall. And it's like a whole blockage that I realized that I was going through. And those blockages were my fences or my guards up. There was the times where I had to numb my pain so I didn't feel anything at all. That actually resulted into a lot of the memory loss that I still am trying to recover from. I have God by my side now, and walking with God now is it's a lifestyle. It's a daily thing. You have to set time aside to be able to talk to him about anything, and it's not just troublesome things going on. It's about the good things, and it's also praying for others as well. So talking with God now and being able to understand now, that's what I needed then, and I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah, no, I think that's major because, like she said, the memory loss part for me is what I remember. I don't remember what we were doing. Like, I don't remember I guess, what we were doing between her dad dying and, like, we were back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's this gap in time of healing that I do not remember. Like, I know we were spending time together. I don't know what we were doing. I don't know what those moments felt like. I don't remember how she was showing up in those moments. Like, I do not remember. I just know we were there with each other. Like, and I made sure I was supporting her and making sure she was okay. But I don't remember anything outside of, like, once it became like something we could joke about was like the memory is like she couldn't remember nothing, and I literally remember. And I think time went by, and life went on. It doesn't mean that she got over it or anybody got over it. It's just you learn to live with the pain.
Yeah.
And I think some of the conversations that we did start to have afterwards that I remember the most were probably around the ways trauma helped you realize that you needed to have boundaries. And not just boundaries in terms of the way you allow people to treat you or with relationships, like lover relationships, but more specifically with family as well. And so I know that was a difficult journey. Can you speak on, like, just the cultural aspects of family for Hawaiian Samoan culture? I guess polyculture, right? Like, how the family is and how learning boundaries was so difficult because of that.
Let's just say within the polyculture, and I'm speaking from modern day terms, obviously, because we've been living in Cali for a very long time since. But for polyculture, there is a lack of boundaries and we think of that in a sign of respect. You have to be respectful. You have to not stray too far from the tree. And putting up that boundary, you are told and taught at a young age to love unconditionally family members that do right, do wrong, whatever the case is, accept them as is. So once you start setting boundaries for yourself within poly community, it gives it a sort of limitation of love that you have.
And it's seen as disrespect.
It's like you are, let's just say you put yourself last in every occasion, your feelings, you put yourself last of giving even your last dollar that you may need for yourself in the future, but so and so needs it
for the family.
And that's always been the stigma that we've been raised around, is for the family. You're sacrificing yourself for the family. You're suffering for the family. I got to a point where I was tired of suffering. I was tired of sacrificing. I was tired of giving every bit, ounce, mental, spiritual, physical part of me. And I wasn't healing in any way. I actually needed to set those boundaries. And mind you guys, speaking boundary wise, boundaries are done, for those that don't understand it, they're for yourself. When you put them in place.
Yeah.
You put them to that capacity of where you're going to take it to and no further. Those boundaries are not for the other person. The other person you can have no control over. They are going to live their life, be who they are. Those boundaries are for you. And whether or not you know it, you are the one putting in that work to keep those boundaries into place, while the other person does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So for me, putting those boundaries was being around family. I didn't want to keep making excuses for them anymore, if that makes sense. I didn't want every sob story to be my story, when I know spiritually and physically I am actually doing pretty well for myself,
right,
but I'm taking on somebody else's pain when I didn't need to. So a part of putting that boundary up was for me to be like, you know what, you can have your pain back. So I no longer wanted to endure things that weren't serving for me. After having my kids and after doing so, and mind you, I didn't find those boundaries until after having my firstborn.
Right.
And it was, within myself, having a kid, you naturally want to do better. You naturally want a better life for them. And I don't know where I heard this from, but I just remember also reading books on it too. The cycle doesn't break after 3 generations, till 3 generations. Yeah. So obviously, if it started with my parents, it's continuing with me, but I want it to stop by my child. Yeah. I don't want her to now endure anything that I've been putting myself through. I don't want her to go through all those pains. And the only way that was going to happen for her is if I did the work on my end. So I had to put up boundaries and, kind of make my family, in a sense, understand that this is what's important to me right now. I'm not saying I love you less. I'm not saying that I don't care anymore. I'm just letting you know that now that I have my family is sitting up here, and I can't put them last. They will not come last. Yeah. And that's just how the culture's kind of been. And for me, I just seen it in a different aspect, that I can no longer put the family I am making in harms and danger from the family that I came from.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I want to talk about that like really quick. Like, how, given the background, right, of the polyculture and that everything is for the family, even if, like you said, it's causing you all these issues or whatever, right? And I want to make clear that this mindset was not out of, I want to cause harm to my family members. The mindset of for the family was literally a beautiful mindset, and it was just to take care of your people. But I think sometimes when you put others, you put others in front of you too much, then you don't know who you are, and you lose sight of what God has for you specifically and how He wants you to move. So given that you now have your own family, right? And you're having to set these boundaries, and I'm sure it was difficult. Folks didn't probably always understand. You may have gotten you think you're better than, and you think you know everything, and you look down on XYZ. What conversations were you having with God in those moments, or what was the surrender moment in that, to know, like, okay, this is where I come from, but this is where I'm going, and I have to let go of some things to get there? What was that like for you in that experience, and what conversations were you having with God in making those boundaries and kind of separating yourself in certain aspects?
It was God just giving me my child. It was just God, honestly. That's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, because if I didn't see the pain through my own daughter's eyes, I would have never saw the pain for myself.
Ooh. They say that you heal your childhood when you're raising a child.
Yep. And that is times 10, times 100. And it's the fact that you've known all that you've known, endured all that you endured. And poly lifestyle is a little harsh, we're a little aggressive. Yeah. For goods being, everybody stays in line, but there are aspects within the polyculture that I don't want to pass down to my child.
Yeah.
That, you know, I can actually do without, and that's not very traditional either. So with that being said, it's either you're all in or you're all out. And for me, I'm not living on nobody's stigma but my own. I am true to my culture. I'm true to the Hawaiians, Samoans, and I'm also true to my daughter.
Yeah.
And both my kids. And I just want a better lifestyle for them. And I want a lifestyle that I can share and culturally endorse all of what life can bring to them. The beauty within the culture, the beauty within the modern day life, and, you know, just understanding that God also blessed us with free agencies, and that free agencies gives us the right to choose, and we choose for ourselves whether it's a good decision or a bad decision. Whatever choice you make is going to be on you to either deal with the consequences. And that's exactly what I got from my family.
Right.
I chose to put up those boundaries, and my family took it as a negative step.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for them.
Exactly.
And that's what they failed to understand. I did get a lot of the, oh, you think you're better than us. But I later started realizing that it wasn't my boundaries that was the issues. It wasn't, you know, my wanting a better life for my child. It was my values. My values was an issue to them because I started putting my values above their issues, their problems, their wants, their needs. And when I started putting myself first, which means that I want to better myself for my daughter. The only way that I'm going to give my daughter everything that she wants and set her up for success is if I was going to show up at 100%. And I wasn't going to be able to do that to have one foot in this side of the door and one foot at the other. I had to close that door altogether. And it wasn't closing it on my family as you're not welcomed in here. It was just closing it to a point where showing my kid we love them, but we need to learn how to love ourselves as well.
Well, I was just going to say, so that you're not pouring from an empty cup.
No.
How can I really be of support to anyone, family, child, if I'm not taking care of myself and filling my own cup? I think the best way that we can position ourselves to care for our families in the way that doesn't drain us is to make sure we know how to fill our cup. And we're setting in place these parameters that say, I can do this, but only to a certain extent, or no, I can't do this. And you don't always have to explain that why, but in doing that, you're showing and modeling for those family members how to do that for themselves as well, and how to advocate for themselves, and to know that it is okay to love someone and tell them no because you don't have the capacity. And so in doing that, what level of trust did it take for you to have in God to make that decision?
I had to trust God through my child. And with that being said, I guess you could say with the capacity of my faith, I leaned in recently, very much recently. And it was more so because I didn't want to bear or have that heavy weight on me. It wasn't my weight to carry.
Yeah.
And that's where it clicked for me. All the pain, the suffering, the family drama, family business. Somebody's not doing good. Somebody needs motivation. Well, I do too.
Yeah.
So if I'm filling everybody's cup, who's filling mine?
Amen.
I had to just give myself to God. Give everything to Him. Give my pain, my suffering. Give Him all that I could no longer carry anymore because it was honestly breaking me. And with that being said, that was the only thing that probably saved me.
Yeah, I think, no, I agree. I think I want to highlight what you said, is that who can fill your cup other than like yourself and God, right? And I think that's important because I hear a lot of conversations about self-care, but it's a lot of outward seeking sometimes. Let me go to this yoga practice, let me do this exercise, let me get in this sauna, let me hang out with these people, have a significant other, and that's supposed to fulfill me and make me happy. But I think in
That's called avoidance.
Exactly. And in our journey as in friendship, we have just seen the best results have come from when we have gone to God before we've gone to anything else. And that applies to not just like self-care and boundary setting. That's just like period off the just at all times. And I think too what's interesting about the fact that you said your journey more recently is how where you've kind of gone the deepest in your relationship with God. You grew up
LDS.
Yes.
LDS.
And
for those that don't understand, there's different I don't want to put it in departments, but there's different levels to it. So there's fundamentals, Mormonism.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not over. I'm not disrespecting no other culture, but I am just acknowledging that, I understand the confusion. For those that don't know, there's Mormonism, there's Latter-day Saints, which is what I grew up in. And for those that also don't understand, they also go by their own little words, like Molly Mormon, Jack Mormon. I'm a Jack Mormon. I choose to kind of navigate God in my own meaning, in my own way, in the way I want to walk with Him. And that doesn't mean that I disown my church or anything. It just means that, I grew up the way I grew up, but I also have my own understanding as well, which is exactly what I put a lot of my intention to. I don't like the stigma. I love the standards. I don't like the stigma of feeling that you need to be perfect for Him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people kind of fail to understand. Mind you, I'm still new to walking with God right now, just surrendering. I've known Him my whole life.
Yeah.
But it's now a whole different journey for me to take to just realign. And this walk with God is an individual walk. You can't take nobody else with you. You can,
and nobody else can take you along.
And the only reason why it's an individual walk is because you have your own purpose. God gives you your own purpose, your own meaning, your own path. The door He opens for me, He's not going to open for Sharon.
Yeah.
And it might not be what's aligned with Sharon's as well.
Amen.
So God, you can't walk with God with everybody. So with that being said, for my aspect, I forgot where I was going with that.
I think we were just talking about, or for me, I mean, you're just explaining what LDS kind of looks like, and I think what people get confused when they hear about different religions is like, oh, that means that they're worshiping a different God, and that's not true. The LDS community believes in the same God that the Christian community believes in, which is why actually Tia attends. We're on a weekly Bible study that is technically using not technically, we use the Christian Bible. And so there's a lot of obviously similarities in the Christian Bible versus the LDS Bible or Mormon Bible.
I read from the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
So and it's stories about God. It's honestly, it's beautiful, and I feel like there's more than just one book that can actually fulfill this picture of the God that we all.
Yeah. Well, and like you read the Book of Mormon, and you're also reading, what is it? What do you have? The NIV version of the Bible. So that to me also just speaks volume on like there are multiple ways to have your walk and your journey with God. There are multiple ways that God can meet you where you're at and bring you to where He needs you to be. Because I don't know, like she said, her journey is her walk and her walk to surrender with God. And the reason why I say your walk to surrender is because really that is what it's about. When you're on a walk with God, it is about surrendering any and all to Him. And what we've talked about is that when you do that, it comes with a price and it comes with a sacrifice. And usually it is something that is ego related, humanly flesh related, worldly, things that are not always in alignment with what God has for you. And we teeter back and forth with letting go of our worldly desires and momentarily satisfactions to what we've been talking about is taking up your cross and walking the walk that Jesus and God want you to walk every single day, which may mean turning down what your flesh tells you is best for you, because they are like, God is the one that ultimately knows that. And so there's multiple ways that God can meet you. And that is to say that I'm not claiming that there's one religion that's better than the other. I believe that what you believe is what you should believe wholeheartedly, and let God use you in all of those ways. But that just brings me to, I guess, kind of like my final question is, in all of what you've been through and all of the moments that you've had to turn to God, give him the things that are the most hardest to kind of let go of control over, what do you want people to know or take from your story, or that you just want to, I don't know, whatever gem dime you want people to take away with, that they out of anything else?
I've heard this multiple times and I've played it over and over in my head. So for those that probably don't understand it, great. For those that do, take it with you. But what you fail to change, you choose. And for the most part, like we said, like, your walk with God is your own journey that you have to take upon yourself. But also remember that God is with you everywhere. God is with Amen. God is within every decision you make. He's Amen. In the room with you. He's in the room with us. He was in the car with me on the way here. Yeah. So just understand that we're not meant to be perfect. We're human. We make mistakes, but that's what God has given us, is the free agency to explore the consequences, the reactions that come afterwards. Don't be afraid to give it to him. Yeah. And that's all we can really say here about the pain, all of that. Don't be afraid to talk to him in your greatest moments either. Don't use him as a parking brake.
And it will not be easy. It's not an easy situation. Nope. It's going to be feeling like you're battling with yourself constantly. But something we've been talking about is that God says that, he has plans for you, and those plans are to prosper you and to take care of you, and plans for you to have a future. And so when you're in moments where it seems like you can't get past this moment, and that life won't be any greater or worse than this, God has a future for you. And that means that if you are still alive today and you have your heart beating and a sound mind, he has something planned for you past where you're currently at. And I don't know who needed to hear that, but that was on my heart, especially to say that, like, wherever you are standing right now is not your final destination. You are not done, and he is not done with you until the day he says, okay, well done. You are now called to me. And I think that is what was so beautiful about her dad. Is that it was clear years later to us what his job was in our relationship, and that was one thing that he checked off that he was here to do. Because
look for the lesson, look for the blessing.
Yes.
And the only way you can do that is just by being still.
Yeah.
The only way that you can actually take in the lesson and blessings of things that are happening around you is just be still.
Yeah. And wait on God. And I think it came full circle when I lost my brother and had to witness it and had to deal with the trauma and the memory loss. And she was able to support me in the way that I needed, because she knew what that was like. And I think that was like, why we were together at so many different milestones, good and bad, in our lives, was like, okay, her dad handpicking us came from a directive from God. Yep. Because
little did we know we needed each other down the road.
Literally. Amen. And like I said, I talked about her children are my godchildren. She's raising not just two beautiful daughters that are Hawaiian and Samoan. They're the little black girls too. And so they are able to every day see a father that looks like them, a mother that looks like them, and have family around them that represents and calls out and uplifts every part of who they are. And I'm blessed to be able to have them in my life, because her, obviously, so she has a new baby. She's what, 6 months. 6 months now. But
copy and paste.
Yeah, literally. Her first daughter, Tiana, who is 7 now, that, like, I'm telling you, like, we are like that. Me and that girl go hand in hand. Like,
and mind y'all, I grew up with Tiana as well.
Yes,
so there was a lot of mistakes made with my first one that a lot of people know. And when you get your second, third, and so on, you're in a whole different mindset. Been there, done that, know what you want, what's best.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole new charismatic. But before we end up closing out, also for those that are grieving, because we can also speak on both of our behalfs, just understand that the grief doesn't get easier. Oh no, child. The grief stays with you. It over time it actually gets harder because in the midst of losing somebody you love so much, you think that hurts. Try going some Christmases, some birthdays, and watching the child, and just see all the beautiful things that they are missing. Yeah. And you just take them with you everywhere you go. The grieving doesn't get any easier. Yeah. No. But you just learn to live with it. You learn to appreciate it. You learn to appreciate it through them as well. Yeah. And know that you're not alone in your grief. Mm-hmm. We understand and we love you. We see you. We hear you. We feel you. And God is with you as well. And when you allow that when you surrender to God, that peace that he talks about, that is something you cannot explain or fathom, it will carry you through. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's not easy. And we'll talk again about what that really looks like, as far as like personally for me. But I just first, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. Like I said, this is the first time this has ever been talked about. Yes. And for it to be talked about on a recording and on camera for others to hear and listen. No bloopers. Yeah, and I also want to make clear that like, just because you have to set boundaries with people you love does not mean that you cannot still value them and love them in the same way you did before. And so this is not to say that boundaries have to be put in place because people are terrible people. No, it is truly for what you need, and everyone should have them. So yeah, thank you. All right. So y'all make sure you subscribe to this podcast on YouTube at Queen Renny Barnes. I hope that y'all enjoyed this episode. I hope that y'all enjoyed getting to see like how our friendship really is consistently nonstop. I'm so glad y'all heard the fact that she was my first bully while we didn't get along. If y'all don't hear nothing else, hear this. There is always a hater in the crowd. But with that it be your own best friend. See? With that being said, let's end this episode the way that we always do. So in the words of my late great brother, Sean E. Washington II, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and reflect. It'll be all right. Most of the time, things work out fine when you just relax your mind. Sending peace and love. Queen Renny out.